Hello and welcome. My name is Carsten Lutzen. I am a professional coach and agile coach and a facilitator. And today I will talk a bit about my first video, magic estimation, and then into a part 2. Because as some of you probably know or might know, I'm not necessarily a big fan of estimation. But let's get back to that later. If you like these videos, please consider subscribing and sharing. That would be super awesome. So my first video was about magic estimation, and it was a big leap of faith for me to jump into how am I doing things, how am I working and sharing it. And magic estimation is one of those techniques that I absolutely love. If I am to talk a bit about estimation, right, if we do it for the right reasons, I'm fine with it. But if we are trying to use it for velocity planning and stuff like that, I think we have much better tools. Anyway, so magic estimation is a super awesome, fast way to estimate stuff. And how I usually do it and facilitate it is we of course need a team and a backlog, and then a somewhat, hopefully somewhat of a psychologically safe team or mature team. Then I ask one of the team members, or if I have multiple teams, to write up the Fibonacci numbers if we are estimating in Fibonacci sizes, and that is 1, 2, and then for each of these numbers put them in a column. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. These are difficult to separate. 8, 13, and then just to mess with people a bit, the next one should logically be 21. I always make it 20 to also say that if we have something that is this big, it doesn't matter if it's 20 or 21, it needs to be broken down before we can do anything reasonable with it. So with these ones, then we grab our backlog and we decide for something to be the baseline. We quickly scan through and see this is probably somewhere in the middle. And then we put that as the first one. So now we are ready to start the magic estimation. What we do is we line up and take turns. We can either pick one from the backlog that is not yet estimated or move one that is already estimated. We can only do one of these actions per turn. So I come up, it's my turn now. I take one from the backlog, and this is done in complete silence. So I read it, I look at it and think, compared to this one, this requires less effort. Then the next person comes, looks at the board. Do I want to use my turn on moving one of these or pick a new one from the backlog? He picks a new one or she picks a new one from the backlog and think this one requires a lot more effort than the other one. And it's so big that I think we should break it down at a later point in time. Then third person comes, looks at the board. Anything I want to move, or do I want to place a new one? He decides to take a new one in place. Next person comes up, picks one from the backlog because that he didn't want to move anything, and that's also an 8. And then the next one comes and think, no. So if these two are 8, then this one should be a 3. Doesn't matter that it's a baseline, it's just one of the others that we move. Then that turn is over, the next one comes and might move it back or put something back again. And then we just continue to do this until every item from the backlog has been put in a column and we are happy with it. So the last turn in magic estimation is everybody looks and decides to do nothing. Then we are stable, nothing here. Nothing changes, and then we can write down the estimates and add it to whatever tool we use to tracking it. We might also end up in a situation if you have a stubborn person like me on the team, that somebody is taking this and move it to a 13, and the next person comes and move it back to a 3, and then another person comes and move it to 13, and then like this. That is where you do a timeout and say, hey, we're clearly not agreeing on this. So let's take a timeout and talk about this in a time box, maybe 5 minutes, to figure out where is our difference in understanding this. What is it that the 13 person is seeing that the 3 person is not seeing? It might be that it's a missing requirement that should be there, or that this person that moves it here knows that part of it has already been done right, or whatever. But in that way we can quickly also refine it, or save it for later and break it down, or whatever. But just if we have something that keeps oscillating back and forth, then take a time out and talk about it 5 minutes and then move on. So that was what I also covered in the first video I ever made here on LinkedIn and YouTube. And I have used this technique for quite a lot of different things afterwards. One of them, my favorite, is for backlog cleanup. I don't know about you. Of course, our backlog is always tidy and nothing is stale, and we have a complete overview of what is in the backlog, and the average age of the backlog is not at all growing. Right. So what I like to do is apply the same mechanic for this, but then for the backlog cleanup, print out the entire backlog again, and then have one column for backlog. So stuff that we put here should still be in the backlog. That is the easy thing. But it might also be when we read that item, we're actually missing some info, meaning we need to take it back to refinement or give it to our product manager or whatnot to find that info, if it's of technical character, right, then maybe send it to one of the developers or team members. It can also be, hey, wait a minute, we actually already started on this. And it can also be, I have seen this before, this is a duplicate. So we might as well just mark it as a duplicate and then see if there's any information on the duplicate that should be added to the other one, and then we can close it. It can also be that we see something, yeah, that's not needed anymore. That ship has sailed a long time ago, so no need to have that in the backlog anymore. Not needed, then we can close it with that comment. It can also be that, wait a minute, we have actually done this already. Super, close it, move on. It can also be that we have absolutely no clue what was meant, more than just missing info. Sometimes some people have a tendency of just writing one sentence that doesn't make sense to anyone else than the author. So maybe just put it here. And in this way you can actually get through a quite big backlog quite fast. I think we had around 350 backlog items in a big backlog that was not that well maintained, and we got through it in half an hour, 45 minutes, depending on how you count the start and the end, right? And then we had a lot of duplicates and a lot of things that was already done and not needed, and then also a lot of stuff that went into the backlog. And we simply just took turns, picked one from the pile, and then moved on. And we could do this really, really fast. As you might have guessed, this works pretty awesome when you are in the same room. You can also do it online with a virtual whiteboard. It doesn't give the same feeling, but it works quite well as well. What you need to do as a facilitator is to dictate what is the order of people. Write it down somewhere so people know. And if this is the first time you're doing it, maybe have an arrow or something that points to, now it's this person, now it's that person. So you help people keep track of whose turn is it. So that was my take on Magic Estimation Part 2. I'm hoping that you have similar exercises that you're willing to share, then please do. That would be awesome. And as always, if you have comments, questions, ideas, or feedback to these videos, please leave a comment or send me a message. That would be super, super awesome. Yeah, that's it. Have an awesome day.